Welcome to Wild Spirits Outdoors, the place for real hunting talk, tactics, and a few laughs. Now let's dive in with your host, Brad Dijon.
Hey guys and gals, welcome back to Wild Spirits Outdoors. As always, I am your host, Brad Dijon, and if you're listening on the day of the drop, today is Tuesday, December 23rd. It is the eve before Christmas Eve. I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a fun one. I hope we get some laughs in. This one's a little more lighthearted. Last week's episode was kind of a deep dive and kind of some heavy-hitting topics, at least for me. Got a lot of good feedback from it, but I wanted to lighten it up a little bit. The year's coming to an end. Let's have a little fun today. So, as far as show notes go, if you're watching, you can see there's only a handful of pieces of paper here. I have not looked at these yet. Again, when I get these Q&As going, all I do is I pull questions, copy paste them, and print them out. So this is a Q&A, no holds barred. I don't know what's going to be on here. I'm guessing there's going to be some interesting questions, maybe some really good topics we'll dive into, and we're just going to let it flow. Tangents are welcome, so we're going to see how it goes. Got me a nice glass of some sparkling aguas here, and something I have not done yet, but I feel like doing tonight. I feel like it. 'Tis the season, I guess. I'm going to have a nice Kentucky-fired Muat cigar while I'm sitting here doing this week's episode. So I'm going to talk as I cut my cigar. Bear with me. Any updates for this week? Not really, to be honest with you. I don't have any merchandise ready. I'm working on it. I appreciate the patience, guys, and I do appreciate those of you that are reaching out, asking for updates, and showing interest in it. Just bear with me. It's been a very, very busy end of the year. Family life, kids are home from college, family gatherings, cars breaking down, not mine, but my kids, helping them get their stuff situated. Coming back from Mexico for my national sales meeting down there. Obviously, I had a lot of catch up to do when I got back, and in my line of business, I am in sales. If you don't know, and in my line of business, the end of the year can be like a kind of feast or famine, and it really just kind of falls down to it's a money thing for most businesses, and it's been busy. Everybody's trying to get a lot of stuff packed in, a lot of purchase orders cut prior to the end of the year so that they go on their 25 books and not their 26 books. But I'm excited for 2026. I'm excited for, what do we got? It's the 23rd when this is dropping, so 7, 8, 9. I got like 11 days, I think, and I head to Ohio for the Ohio muzzleloader season. I can't wait to get down there. I'm excited. That'll be my first remote podcast, so we'll see how that goes. I can barely get this thing functioning inside of my own studio, so it'll be fun to see how I do inside of an Airbnb. But it's going to be fun. Got a buddy of mine traveling from Wisconsin/Illinois. Again, depending on which house he's at that day. He's got residencies in both states because of the type of work he does. But I'm excited to have him make the trip to join me. My brother-in-law's surgery on his shoulder went fantastic. He is recovering well. He is excited for the coming season. He's ready to get back into it. And my buddy Steve, as we speak, is over in the great state of Washington, working with the company over there on getting fitted for a brace for his foot. So sending my prayers and best wishes to both of them, both for speedy recoveries, quick healing, and hopefully for some life-changing events that will just, make life better for them in general, not just for hunting. So, yeah, that's really all I got for updates, guys. Again, I think this is going to be fun. I hope I don't make any weird faces with some of these questions, but who knows? We'll see how it goes. I think that's it. So let's dive into it. I'm gonna fire up my stick here. That's a good cigar. Yes, sir. Made by Drew Estate, in case you're wondering. Google them. They're pretty good if you're a cigar smoker. I am not a cigar aficionado, but I do enjoy a good cigar, and I really like these ones. So, first cigar in the studio. Definitely won't do this a whole lot. I'm sure if anybody's watching and they see the mounts, they're probably cringing. I can't believe you're smoking a cigar in your studio with all those mounts. I promise it'll be okay. It's a one-time thing, maybe a two-time thing. Won't do it very often, but I do have my vent running to pull some of this smoke out of here. So, yeah, let's get into it. Let's have some fun. All right. This, like I said, this is an anything goes. I've just been pulling questions that I've received through Instagram, Facebook, the website, people that just, we're talking hunting or we're just talking in general, questions pop up, that kind of stuff. So I pulled it all together, copy pasted it, printed it out, and we're just going to run through them in the order they're written, and we'll see what tangents they take us on as we go. So question number one is, what's one piece of hunting advice that I believed for years that turned out to be completely wrong? I mean, there's a lot of bad advice. I've gotten a lot of bad advice over the years, but that's part of how you grow. And just because it was bad advice for me doesn't mean it was bad advice. Some things work for different people, different circumstances, different terrains, different hunting styles, even. But I guess one of the biggest things that I have been told, I guess is the best way to write or to word it. People put way too much concern into weather, and if it's too hot, I'm not going to go hunting. If it's too cold, I'm not going to go hunting. If it's too windy, wait for the conditions to be right, so on and so forth. And that's a double-edged sword. Certain circumstances, yes. If I'm hunting, my property where I have things set up for particular winds, obviously I'm not going to go hunt that, if the wind is completely wrong for it. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't go hunt. That just means I adapt. I either relocate to a different spot on my property or I hunt somewhere, different altogether. So I guess that one piece of advice that I've been given was, a lot of people would say, wait till you have the right wind, wait till you have the right weather to go hunt. It's no sense in hunting when it's too hot, that kind of stuff. Get out and hunt. That's really it. A bad day of hunting is better than a good day of work, as they say. So I guess that would be my my response to that one there. Next question is, if I had to hunt the rest of my life with one cartridge, which cartridge am I choosing? Okay, so we're talking firearm hunting here. Uh, for me, it's gonna probably vary, or it's gonna be much different than for other people, depending on the state, depending on what zone you live in, depending on what cartridges are restricted, etc. Um, Honestly, if I could only pick one cartridge and I had to use that to hunt with, regardless of where I was hunting, so long as it was legal to use that cartridge there, I got to go with the 308. I think it's a very versatile round. You can use it. It's great short range. It's great to reach out and touch something at long distances. And that's just where I think it's interesting for me anyway is, dude, there's so many great rounds out there. I mean, there's so many phenomenal cartridges. Some get overly hyped, some don't seem to get as much credit as they deserve, but I mean, there's a lot of them out there. And I am not like, I love guns. I own plenty of them. I love to shoot, but I'm not like super geeked out on guns to the point where like I have a massive collection of all these different cartridge, uh, you know, guns. I don't have a ton of different ones. I've got quite a few, but I don't have a lot of the exotic stuff. I don't have like a 7 mag or a 300 Win mag. I haven't even shot a 300 Win mag. So I guess from my perspective, my opinion is going to be limited based on what I have experience with. So I'm going to take the 308. I can take that thing out west, or I can take it in the swamp here in Michigan, and it's going to do the trick for me regardless. Next question. All right. All right. What's the dumbest mistake I've ever made in the woods that still makes me cringe? Boy, we could do a whole podcast on Brad's dumbass moves in the woods. But let me think about this one for a minute. What's the dumbest mistake I've made? Uh, I guess I'm gonna go with one that I think about really every year, and it really was dumb, and it was a mistake, and it makes me cringe. So I guess this one will fall in line with the question. When I was 17 years old, I went out to hang a preset stand, um, and when I was in my teens, I didn't wear a harness very often, and I know that's stupid, but I didn't. They weren't. I mean, they were out. They were absolutely out, but it wasn't something that was super ingrained into you. I mean, it was talked about during hunter's ed, but um, it just wasn't something that people really spent a lot of time talking about. I guess was tree stand safety. When I was 17, I went out and I hung a set, and I hung it in a massive pine tree. It was a big, massive white pine, and I was using the branches of the tree to climb, not using sticks or steps or anything like that. So I was climbing up in this thing, using the branches. I used the branches to climb it when I hung the stand. And this was an old, I can't remember what kind of stand it was. Might have been an old, what were they, AMAs or APA? I can't remember what they were called. But basically, you had a T screw. You screwed that T screw into the tree, and then there was a groove in the base of the stand that sat down on that T screw. You cinched it up, not super tight, but just tight enough to hold it in place, and then you ran a strap around it to cinch it down to the tree. So, like I said, I'm climbing up the branches, and I get up to where I want this thing set up, and I pulled that T screw out of my sack or pocket, whatever I had it in, screwed it in, hung the stand on it, and I stepped over the stand onto another branch. So I'm like spread eagle over top of my tree stand, and I'm trying to reach around this big pine tree to grab the strap. So as I'm reaching around trying to do it, I can't quite reach it. So for some stupid reason, I decide that T screw will be strong enough that if I take my left leg off the branch and I swing it up and I just put my left leg on the stand, it'll get me close enough to the tree where I can lean over, grab the strap, and cinch this thing down. Well, about 1 second after I put maybe 30% of my weight down on that T screw, being in a soft pine tree, it ripped out. And man, I was probably 20, 25 feet up in that tree, and I hit every single branch on the way down out of that tree. Um, Banged my head off my tree stand. It went down with me. I had, bruises on my ribs. I was all cut up. Thankfully, I didn't break any bones, and thankfully, I played plinko far enough down the tree that I didn't sustain a really hard hit to the ground. But that was stupid. I mean, really, really dumb. Definitely one of the biggest mistakes I've made while hunting, and I was very fortunate to walk away from that with just some bruises, some scrapes, some cuts, and a really pissed off mom when I came home and looked like I got attacked by a freaking raccoon or something. So that's why I usually sign off every episode with wear your harnesses. It's just a constant reminder to me. Um, there's been times since then where I got to the tree stand and was like, I can't believe this, but I forgot to put my harness on. Young me would have said, you'll be all right. And I would go up and hunt without it. Not anymore. I will not get in a tree without a harness on unless I'm in my saddle when I'm already, hooked up to the tree. But yeah, so that's my dumbest mistake. And I was very fortunate that it didn't cost me a broken bone or worse. Next question. All right, here we go. This is stuff I geek out on for sure. What matters more when you're trying to manage a small property? Food plots, cover, or low pressure? Well, it didn't really define what a small property is, but let's say a 40-acre piece. I mean, that's a fairly small property. Uh, Cover, to me. If you don't have good cover, you're not going to hold deer. You got to have cover if you want to hold deer. Um, Now, I'm looking at this from a Midwest perspective, so I'm picturing a 40-acre chunk of, mixed hardwood, maybe a little swamp, things like that. So that's what I'm picturing when I look at this question. And for me, it's cover. Um, Cover creates food. If you're properly creating cover, you're creating browse. That's something to hold deer on your property. I think one of the biggest issues that small properties have um, is they don't have cover. So you're relying on deer to come from somebody else's property or to come off of public and come onto your property. And I would much rather have a spot for the deer to have cover on my property. If I have 40 acres and I can only hunt it one stand, I mean, I'm not saying that's the case, but if my property could only have one stand on it because I had the proper cover to hold deer, I would rather have that one stand and hunt that one stand probably more than I should. So increasing pressure because I have the cover. And the cover, like I said, creates food. So that was a long answer, but cover. That's my answer. Next question is this is a pretty common one. I mean, I think everybody asks this all the time, but I'll answer it. I think I've answered it before, but fixed blade or mechanical broadheads, which what finally made me pick a side? Well, I don't really have a side. Um, I shoot I shoot mechanicals. In fact, I'm going to set my cigar down and I'm going to step away from the camera real quick. I'll be right back. Bear with me. Well, this doesn't have a broadhead on it, but let me get set back up here. I shoot a mechanical. I shoot gold tip airstrikes. I really, really love these arrows. They fly amazing. But I shoot these and I shoot them tipped with a 125 grain beast broadhead. And I'm pretty sure I've talked about that. In fact, I think when Tom Calgeron was on the podcast back in episode 2, we talked about that. Uh, I can't think of the guy. Josh Bomar. I don't know if he invented the beast broadhead, but it was a concept that he came up with, and I'm sure he had engineers help develop it. Blah blah blah. It is a phenomenal broadhead, guys. I know a lot of people don't like Bomar. I know he's, people think of him as a big-headed, narcissistic, roid-raged dude. But if you actually just, listen to the guy, look at what he's done, just in hunting in general, and then look at these broadheads from a clean slate point of view, the things are amazing. Um, I've shot everything on the market, with the exception of some of the newer stuff. Um, I've shot fixed muzzies, I've shot Magnus, I've shot Rage, I've shot G5, I've shot G5 fixed, I've shot G5 mechanicals. They're all good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they are all good. And I always tell people don't shoot something because somebody else shoots it or because a marketing campaign tells you to. If you can afford to, get a handful of each and just see for yourself what it does for you. I love the Beast broadheads. I shot 3 deer with them last year. I shot that one right there with one. I shot this one right here with one. And oh, this one right here. I forgot I had my Ohio buck back. So these 3 bucks I shot with a Beast broadhead last year, and they combined went I think less than 120 yards if I do the math here. That one went, I think that one went 28 yards. This guy here, I think he went 20 yards, and he went about 40 yards. So yeah, sub 100 yards, all 3. And again, and I talked about this on the episode. It wasn't that the broadhead, was so much more devastating than other broadheads that I shot. Honestly, what really impressed me was the reaction I got out of the deer, guys. All 3 of these deer, when I shot them, they didn't take off running like a bat out of hell. I didn't get a massive donkey kick out of them. They all just took one leap and just kind of stood there looking around like, what the hell just happened? And then they, slowly trotted a little bit and tipped over dead. It was like they had no clue what just happened. Um, that's what impressed me the most about them. I shoot a heavier setup. It's not a mega heavy setup. I think, and don't quote me because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think my total arrow weight, including my broadhead, is 529 grains, right around there. So right in that 530 range. So it's not super heavy, but it's heavier than what a lot of people are shooting, and I just love it. So I'm going to continue to shoot the beast broadheads until they either quit making them or until something happens with them that makes me lose confidence in them. And I just don't see that happening. They're a pretty bulletproof broadhead and they're extremely strong. But having said all that and saying I'm a mechanical guy, um, there are situations where I would probably switch over to fixed. For example, I know I talked about it really early on when the podcast first started about going elk hunting next season. Um, those plans have changed a little bit because we've now decided we're going to go on a guided elk hunt in Wyoming. So points are going in, but it's going to be 2-3 years probably before we make that hunt happen. When I go on that hunt, I may switch to fixed blade. I'm going to talk to the guide. I'm going to talk to the guide service, and I'm going to tell them what my setup is, and I'm going to listen to them. If they say, we don't recommend that on these elk out here, we recommend you shooting a cut on contact fixed blade, then I'm going to make that switch. I want to be able to. I don't want to wound an animal, so you know, for whitetail here in the Midwest, I'm a mechanical guy, and it's going to be the beast broadheads, but that can change depending on where I'm at and what I'm hunting. So another really long answer to a really simple question. You're welcome, guys. What's a piece of gear that everybody swears by that I don't like? Uh, Ozone, probably. I think they smell bad. I think it's a lot of work, and I think you're getting very little ROI on that investment. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't work. There's people that swear by them. If I have to be careful about what I put in it, like elastic, for example, and my elastic's going to get all stretched out and lose its stretchiness, I don't want to deal with it. I don't think it. I don't think ozone provides a big enough benefit to justify the cost and the hassle of having to use it. Um, I don't want to sit in a box blind with one running. I don't want to run one in my truck. So I just be careful with my stuff and try not to get any foreign scent on it. And I do my best to eliminate as much scent as I can. And then I roll the dice. So that would probably be my piece of gear that a lot of people swear by that I personally could care less about. Let me take a quick drink here as I read this next question. If I only had 3 days to hunt for the entire year, which days would I pick? So again, I'm gonna assume we're talking Midwest region, and I'm gonna assume we're talking whitetail. If I can only pick 3 days a year to hunt, I'm going to pick October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd. Every year, back to back to back days, all day long sits, and I'm going to kill a deer. That's my goal. And those are the 3 days I would pick. Next question. What is a hunting trend taking place right now that I think will disappear in 5 years? Man, this is going to be a tough one for me. I don't really know what's trending. I don't really pay that close attention to trends. Man, I don't know if anything's going to disappear. I mean, there's gimmicky shit from the 90s that people still use to some extent. What hunting trend do I think will disappear in 5 years? Man, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm gonna circle back to that one. I'm gonna circle back because I got to think about that in the back of my head. Next question. Ice fishing. Do you do it for the peace or for an excuse to drink beer in the cold? Well, I don't drink beer when I ice fish. I drink brandy, blackberry brandy. But I can't even tell you guys. I don't know what it is about ice fishing that I like so much. I mean, there's it can suck. I mean, dragging shit out on lakes by hand, having to move around if you're not getting on fish, or the fish are being finicky and you got to move holes a lot. It's a lot of pain in the ass to do all that. But man, I just love to ice fish. When I was a kid, I hated it, absolutely despised it. But that's because my old man had me sitting on a 5 gallon bucket, no fish finder, with a freaking schoolie rod, just sitting there, just jigging away, freezing my ass off. That was not fun for me. Um, I'm a fair weather fisherman. I love to fish, guys. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not that diehard guy that's gonna go out and chase bass when it's freaking freezing cold, pissing rain, and windy. I'm not that guy. Um, I want to fish in comfort, so I'm gonna if it's you know if I'm out on a boat or I'm fishing off a shore or something, it's gonna be a nice day to do it. Ice fishing. I don't really care what the weather is because I am going to dress very warm to get to where I'm going. I'm going to pop up my insulated shanty. I'm going to turn my heater on. And I don't care if it's 10 degrees outside. I'm going to be inside an insulated shanty where it's 68, 70 degrees, cooking hot dogs, drinking water, drinking some brandy, smoking a cigar, watching my fish finder, jigging away in a t shirt. So I guess I just love to ice fish. There's something about just being out there, looking out the window, hearing people hooting and hollering, yelling people, having people scream flag, flag, and watching people run over to their tip ups, sliding across the ice trying to get their tip ups up. And then it's always the fun, whether it's you're chasing specks or you're chasing perch, walleye. I love to walleye fish. I love to go over to Saginaw Bay, jump on the snowmobile and head 8-10 miles out and get on just some monster walleye. But I just love it. I don't know. I'm not an expert by any means. I am probably more or less a novice when it comes to like true ice fishing knowledge. I mean, I have a rudimentary understanding of how to do it. I'm quite successful on the smaller inland lakes around where I live. I do very well out on Croton Pond on hard water just because I've got spots I've gone to for many, many years and they just produce every year. So I don't have to move around a lot. I just enjoy it. I would rather ice fish than fish out of a boat or fish offshore. Don't know why, just something about it. Well, let's see here. Well, that was the last question on that. I'm going to try to go back to this hunting trend one before I flip the page, or I'm going to forget about it. So let me think. What's a hunting trend right now that I think will disappear in 5 years? Man, I don't know. I'll tell you one I hope disappears. Um, I hope less people introduce kids to hunting out of a box blind. And I'm not dogging on that, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I just think kids can learn so much more not sitting in a box blind, being able to hear nature around them, being able to see the deer approaching, whether they're approaching a food plot or a scrape or what have you. I hope in 5 years I see more and more pictures of kids sitting in stands or sitting on the ground, that kind of thing. So that's the best way I can answer that one, guys. Next page. I got a lot of questions here. What's the closest I've come to calling off a hunt before I even started it, and why didn't I? Man, I don't think I've ever really called off a hunt or been tempted to call off a hunt. I've called off many locations, like I'm heading into a spot and just nothing's working. The wind is not doing what I needed to do, things like that. But I didn't just call the hunt. I just relocated. Um, yeah, I don't think I've ever. Well, I guess call a hunt early. That's a fair one. There's been plenty of times where, you know, whether it's out of state or at home when you're putting in all day sits and maybe you're taking a rutcation, if you will, and you got 5, 6, 7 days, whatever, however you get your vacation days to line up, and you're putting in all day sits. Man, by that third, fourth all day sit, where you're just sitting for 10, 12 hours a day in one spot, not getting down, not moving, that can just mentally F you. I mean, it will drive you bonkers. And by that third or fourth day, you're looking around right about prime time. I mean, your mind starts being like, oh, well, if you can't see any coming, you should probably get down now. Otherwise, they're going to come in right at dark, and you're either going to spook them getting down, or you're going to have to sit here for 2 hours till they leave. So I've had plenty of times where the brain has tried to trick me into getting out of a stand earlier than I know I should. What always keeps me in the stand is I just kind of, internally slap myself and say, dude, what are you talking about? It's stupid. You're not going to get down at prime time because you can't see a deer coming and you don't want to get stuck in the tree. So I guess that would be my closest to calling a hunt early situation that I've run into. Next question is speed setups versus heavy arrow setups. If I had to explain the difference between the two to a new archer in 60 seconds, how would I? Speed, fast. Heavy, not fast. there's there's me summarizing it to a new hunter, and I only did it in like 4 seconds. No, I would encourage new hunters to to shoot a lot of different setups, but I would always err them on the caution of setting up on the heavier side. It's more forgiving. It's quieter. Um, I think it just creates overall a better hunting setup. You know, there's some bows out there that can crank some speed. They're just freaking throwing darts, but and there's nothing wrong with that. There's guys that are just stone cold killers with those setups. I just prefer the quietness of a heavier setup. I prefer the kinetic energy that a heavier setup provides. So if I was going to give my sales pitch to a new hunter and explain the difference, I would just simply say, uh, speed setups are less forgiving. They're typically noisier. Um, if you if you're shooting a super fast bow, a slight torque of the wrist can have a major impact on your arrow flight, and a heavier setup is just going to be more forgiving. If you were to torque it, it's going to be quieter, and when it hits, it packs a punch. I don't know if that would have been 60 seconds, my last little spiel there, but that's how I'd do it. Uh, what animal has humbled me more than any other? I bet a lot of people think I'm going to say white-tailed deer, but I'm actually not. Um, Believe it or not, wild turkeys have humbled me more than any other animal that I've hunted. They look so damn dumb. Toms during mating season, you can get them to freaking come running and gobbling into a car horn. But then when you try to kill them, man, them sons of bitches they pick up movement so quick and they just start doing the head bobbing and the next thing you know, they're taking off running. So yeah, especially with archery equipment, wild turkeys have humbled me more than any other animal that I've chased after. Uh, Next question. It's I think this is related to ice fishing again. What's more dangerous, bad ice or being overly confident? Well, I think being overly confident is more dangerous because there's no such thing as good ice, in my opinion, or safe ice. You have to treat ice with a lot of respect, and you have to be very careful. Wear the right PPE, float suit. At the very least, have cleats on. Have picks ready so you can get out if you were to fall in. And for crying out loud, spud, spud, spud. You can have great ice and 4 feet over, you can have a pocketed, just really bad ice. So never become overconfident. Um, Always a good idea to follow other footsteps look where people have been safely walking, especially as we get more into the season and more people are going out. Oftentimes, like on the bay, for example, I mean, there will be a groomed snowmobile trail. Now, obviously, out on the bay, I'm not going to stop and spud in front of my snowmobile when I got to go 8 to 12 miles out. But I'm going to be very cautious about where I go. I'm going to stay on the trails that guys that are out there way more often than I do, that are very courteous with their time and care about other people's safety, basically lay out indicators, whether it's a stick driven into the ice or Christmas trees, or they mark pressure cracks so people know where they're at, and you follow the main course or the main trail in and out. Um, and you always have GPS, not just a phone, but you have actual GPS with you, because things can get sideways on the bay in a hurry. And anybody that's familiar with Saginaw Bay ice fishing, I'm sure they know that. Sorry, I had to reinflate the stogie there. Next question is, what's an archery myth that refuses to die? That you can beat a deer's nose. You can't do it. I don't care what you use. I don't care how you do it. You cannot beat a deer's nose. Next question. If I could go back and talk to myself at age 20 about hunting, what would I say? Uh, I could write a book about what I would say to 20-year-old me when I was hunting. Um, I guess first and foremost, I would tell 20-year-old me, keep doing what you're doing, because you're getting very very good at it. And then secondly, I would say, um, be more aggressive, um, be more explorative, go look at new spots, satisfy that wanderlust that you have. Um, I didn't really get super into checking out new spots until I was probably in my almost early 30s, late 20s, early 30s. So almost a decade there. I was just kind of going to the same spots, places I was very familiar with. And, if I did go to a new spot, I wasn't doing anything super crazy, as far as like going deep on public or trying to get off the pressure of other people and things like that. I would just tell myself, be more adventurous, enjoy it, enjoy your 20s, and just go do it. Um, Stop worrying so much about going to the bar and having fun on a Friday or Saturday night, and save that money and do some more uh, bucket list hunts, because next thing you know, you're 40, and before you blink an eye, you're 60. And some of those hunts that you had the capability physically to do in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s might not be so easy to do when you're 60, 65, 70 years old. So that's what I'd tell 20-year-old me, or anybody that's out there listening, 20-year-old yous. Go have fun, spend less money on chasing women and drinking, spend it chasing deer, or elk, or bear, or moose, or whatever. Gotta light my stick again. Maybe not. That's a good cigar. What's my next question here? I lost my spot. Kind of the same question I already answered, but what's the most overrated piece of must-have hunting gear? Um, I mean, to me, I guess it's going to be the latest and greatest model of bow, or whatever it is that you hunt with. You don't have to go get a brand new one every single year or every couple years. Take care of what you got. Change out your strings. You don't have to go out and buy the flagship model. I hear so many people say, and I'm going to talk about bow hunting here because that's my passion, but so many people say, well, bow hunting's so expensive. Yeah, it is, especially if you're going to a pro shop and buying a flagship bow that just the bow itself costs $1,800 to $2,400, and then you're throwing a $400 sight on it, a $300 rest, uh, you know, and top notch everything. You don't need it. There's so many used bows on the market there's so many guys that go out and buy the brand new flagship model every year, and they've shot 100 arrows through their other bow, and they sell that thing for pennies on the dollar. I mean, you can find them all over the place. Um, there's pages on Facebook dedicated to that kind of stuff. Um, there's ads. You go into pro shops, and some of them take bows in on trade. You can buy a really, really high quality flagship model bow, like top of the line, but maybe a year or two old, for a fraction of what a new one would cost. Or you can do like what I do, and if you want a new bow, one thing about me, and I'm not saying this for everybody, I get a little hesitant about buying a used bow. Like, I don't know how those people took care of it. I mean, you can obviously look it over and make sure everything's functional on it, but I don't want something that, even if it didn't screw the bow up, I don't want something somebody dry fired or something like that. I would rather buy a mid level bow. Um, it's not the flagship model. It doesn't have all the, you know, gadgets and all the tricked out stuff on it, but I can buy that mid level bow for a half to a third of what the flagship model is going to cost, and I can be just as deadly with it as I could be with the flagship model. So I guess that would be uh, what I think is overrated, and it's marketing. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with, if you can afford it and that's just what you want to do. There's nothing wrong with picking a new bow up every year if you want, or every couple of years. Just people say it's super expensive to get into bow hunting, but it doesn't have to be. There's things you don't want to cheap out on. I'd rather buy a mid-level bow and pay really good money for really good arrows and good money for good broadheads, um, and take some of that money I saved from buying that mid-level bow so that I can buy this stuff. A good quality rest. I'm more concerned with the quality of my rest, my sight, and my arrows than whether I have the latest, greatest flagship model bow, if that makes sense. Do I think pressure ruins more hunts than bad weather? Absolutely. Um, Again, I am not a. I don't care what the weather is. I'm gonna go hunting. I've talked about this on podcasts before. I've talked about it in social media posts. We don't get a whole lot of days to go hunting. You know, the season itself, and again, I'm talking bow hunting because that's my passion. I mean, overall, like here in the state of Michigan, there's freaking a deer hunting season for about half of the year, but I'm into bow hunting. I do hunt, with guns and stuff, but bow hunting's my passion. And if I look at just bow hunting, I've basically got 90 days of season, so 3 months, 12 weeks. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of time. And then when you take into account, you got a job, you got work, you got family, that starts really, cutting into those 90 days you have available to hunt. I'm gonna hunt. I don't care what the weather is. Um, Pressure, on the other hand, is where you can burn spots out. And I've talked about this before. I don't subscribe to. I think you can blow a deer out of relatively the same area repeated times, and that deer's not just gonna move to the next zip code. They're gonna alter their behavior. They're gonna alter their travel. They might alter when and where and how they come into where you're bumping them from, but they're still going to use that property. But if they're doing it nocturnally, it's not doing you any good as a hunter. So pressure is going to ruin way more hunts than bad weather is. I've had some great success on some really, really shitty weather days. And I've had really bad shitty weather days, but I'm telling you, the pressure is going to be the one that's going to kill a hunt before weather does. Because regardless what the weather is, whether it's too hot, whether it's too cold, whether it's too windy, the deer feel that. The deer live in it every single day, 365. They adjust their behavior accordingly. If it's super hot, go find some water and hunt by water. If it's super cold, go find some thermal cover and hunt by the thermal cover. If it's super windy, find thermal cover or find windrows that are blocking wind and hunt that. But if there's 10 people hunting 40 acres, that pressure is going to screw your hunt. Next question is, what's the first mistake? I just spit. I'm just over here drooling, guys. What's the first mistake most guys make when they're hunting out of state? Oh boy, I'm trying to think of the mistakes I made when I first started doing it. Um, it's probably packing, to be honest with you. Um, you can pack way too much shit, to be perfectly honest with you, and that can cause problems. Uh, Not only for the comfort of the ride, especially if you're riding with multiple people, but when you're trying to get things set up and organized where you're hunting, especially if you're you know camping out of your truck or out of a tent and you have all this crap, it becomes irritating and it becomes messy. So I think overpacking um, is probably one of the more common mistakes for people that are first going out. And I get it because I did the same thing. You're so worried, like I gotta have everything with me. I don't want to, leave no stone unturned. I can't not bring something that I might need. But once you've done it a couple times, you're like, oh man, I don't need all that stuff. I just need to look at the weather, have enough clothing and different layers to account for varying degrees of weather changes, rain, things like that. And I don't need all this other stuff. So that would be my hot take on that. Next question. What's my personal rule on shot distance and why? Again, I mean, it could vary depending on what kind of critters we're talking about here, but I'm going to take it to Midwest whitetails again. Um, it's a tough one for me to answer, to be honest with you. My personal preference is 20 yards or in, but I've taken plenty of shots at deer beyond 20 yards. Um, I guess if I had to put a hard stop cutoff on, what my max shooting distance is going to be, it's probably going to fall 40 to 45 yards. But there's got to be a lot of things that I know, and a lot of things have to happen right, and a lot of things have to line up for me to even take a shot beyond 30 yards, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm not trying to brag, but I am a really good shot with a bow and arrow. I practice religiously out to ranges of 80 yards, and I can shoot very tight groups at 80 yards, but I can also shoot my arrow and probably do a push up before that arrow even hits the target because there's so much time. It takes so long, especially when I'm shooting arrows like this. When I'm shooting a heavier setup, it's slower. Um, so things really have to line up for me to go beyond 30. But if I had to just say I will not take a shot past X distance, it's going to be in that 40 to 45 yard range. Um, and I think I've only taken one shot beyond 40 yards. I'm trying to think back. I think I've only taken one shot beyond 40 yards at a deer. I was successful with it, but I got lucky. I might have talked about this in a past episode. Actually, I actually ranged that deer wrong, and I thought it was like 35 yards, and I think it was like 47 or 48. Um, I would have missed that deer clean, probably 12 inches under it, um, but it ducked into my arrow, and I smoked it. But yeah, I don't like taking long shots at whitetail. Way too many things can happen. They can move. A lot of things can go wrong. Wind can push your arrow. There's just got to be a lot of things that have to line up perfectly for me to even contemplate taking that long of a shot. Many, many times. Next question is have you ever passed an animal and immediately regretted it? Yes, I have several times. And it's not always because I'm regretting, like, oh, I should have shot that deer because, for whatever reason, and I regretted it because of that. There's been situations where I've had deer that came in that were wounded, and I sat there and contemplated too long if I felt that deer was in bad enough shape where I should, you know, fill my tag on it because I didn't think it was going to survive, and I hemmed and hawed and thought about it too much and overanalyzed it, and then, you know, they got out of bow range or whatever, and then I never saw them again in person or on camera, which always led me to believe they likely succumbed to their injuries. So I've had situations like that happen. Um, as far as like having a little rack regret, I tell you guys a little story. So um, I've told you guys about my my gross Boone and Crockett over here that I shot in Illinois. That buck grossed 171 and netted 166 and change. I was high on life when I shot that deer, and to be honest with you, I got a little bit big headed. The following year, um, so let me back up. So I shot this deer in '08, and then as the '08 season was coming to an end, I met a couple of guys, good group of guys. No love lost with these guys, but we decided, and again, this is back in '08, so it's crazy to even think about this, but that's almost 20 years ago already. Um, we decided we were going to start filming hunts and try to put some stuff out on DVD at the time. So uh, I think there was two, three, four, I think there was five of us total. Um, the name of our show was TOG Outdoors, which stood for the other guys. We were trying to think of something unique as far as branding and marketing, and we're like, man, you got the Drurys, you got the Lakoskis, you got the Waddells, you got the Bill Jordans. We're the other guys, right? We're just the other guys. So that's how we branded that. So we started, putting plans together and working out schedules for who was going to film for who and taking turns on who was going to hunt, so on and so forth. And this lasted for really a little over one season, and it just kind of started to fall apart. I think looking back on it now, I was too young to do something like that, especially in my hunting career. As far as what I had shot, I was way too greedy at that age. I wanted to always be hunting, so filming was difficult for me. But um, so in 2009, I'm back in Illinois, same farm, in fact, that I shot this deer on, and I'm down there with TOG Outdoors, and I have a cameraman with me, and we are putting in long, long days, um, and we put a double set up about 150 yards from where I shot this deer. Um, really nice, really nice transition, great spot to hunt the rut, and we were down there. I think I think in '09 our hunt started on like November 4th. It went the 4th through, I think we were there for 7 days, so like the 4th through the 11th, something like that. This year it was the 8th through the 15th we were down there, or somewhere along those lines. I know the 8th was the first day, but anyway, we get set up, first hunt in. Um, First day I passed, and I didn't regret it. I passed a couple nice solid 130 class deer. Uh, Second day in, I passed like a 140, and then I think the third day we didn't see any deer. If we did, they were nothing that we are going to get excited about shooting anyway. And then I think it was day four. And here's where I said where I come back to that. I was getting a little bit big headed. I had made up my mind for some stupid reason that I shot a 170-inch deer. So I kind of set a 160-inch deer as my, I'm not going to shoot anything smaller than a 160. And that's what I told myself. And on day four, we had a freaking phenomenal buck come in. I mean, couldn't have asked for things to move better than they did. Little bit farther of a shot than I would have liked. It was like a 30, 32-yard shot. Um, Cameraman had him. I mean, he's whispering to me, I got him, you're good. I even drew back, and I'm just looking at the rack, and somehow I convinced myself that buck was like another 140-inch deer. And I let down, and I looked at the camera, and I said, yeah, that's a nice buck, but I'm looking for something a little bit better than that. And the buck's out of range, and as I'm looking at the camera, as soon as I stopped talking and I went back to looking, the cameraman did just a quick pan out for like some B-roll footage, and then he like stops the camera and he looks at me and he's like, why the hell didn't you shoot that deer? And I'm like, it was only like a 140-inch deer. And he's like, dude, that was not a 140-inch deer. So he opens the camera up and he's like replaying the deer to me, and I guess I didn't see it at the time. I only saw like a mainframe 10. This thing had like freaking 5 or 6 kickers. I mean, this was a gross 160. buck. I mean, just a freaking phenomenal buck. So it wasn't super immediate because I had to watch the tape back. But as soon as I watched that back, man, I felt about 2 inches tall and I felt like an idiot. So, yeah, I have passed some animals and definitely regretted it. And to add insult to injury, um, I never saw another buck over like 120 inches the rest of the time we were down there that year. So, lesson learned, I guess. Oh, next question. Oh, this is a good one. If social media disappeared, how would the hunting culture change? Man, if social media disappeared tomorrow, hunting culture would get a lot better, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I use social media and I try to use that platform to market the podcast and to spread word about what I'm doing and things like that. But if social media disappeared, and I'm not just talking Facebook, I'm talking Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever else there is out there. I'm sure there's more popular stuff than that out there that younger people are using that I'm not even aware of. But I think hunting culture would improve significantly. I think if we took the social media and got rid of it, not only would the culture improve just because there's less comparison and FOMO, fear of missing out, and constantly analyzing everybody else's successes and failures, but I think more kids would put their phones down and find something else to do. And I think they would find more satisfaction in going out and hunting, fishing, hiking, etc., than they do watching somebody else do it through social media influencing. So I think the hunting culture would get better, and that's coming from somebody who is trying to use social media to spread awareness about how I'm doing things. So that's my take on that. Got to get got to get the stogie going again, guys. Bear with me. All right. What's something non-hunters get completely wrong about hunting? There's a lot of things, but probably the biggest one is people get so offended that you're taking an innocent animal's life, but those same people will go to McDonald's and scarf down a freaking mass farmed, mass produced production crop cattle. Don't even know what you want to call it because it's not even really beef, to be honest with you. But without batting an eye, they'll go do that. And if you try to explain to them how chickens live in massive corporate farming, meat chickens, and how laying hens live, and how cattle live and things like that, they don't want to see that, but they see you shoot an innocent, air quote innocent Bambi out in the woods, and they get so offended by that. And if you try to explain to them that I would rather take an animal that has lived a free life, feeding on whatever it wants, traveling wherever it wants, living a free, unrestricted, uninhibited life, and take that good, clean meat and provide, food for my family versus a cash crop cattle farm in the way those animals live. They just don't seem to, it doesn't seem to register with them. And the same with the vegans. And we've all, seen the stories and the memes and heard people talk about, vegans can get super aggressive about eating meat, but they don't want to talk about the absolute decimation that planting agriculture fields for their crappy vegan food does. So, yeah, that would be my take on that. The next question is tree stands, box blinds, saddles, or ground hunting. Which one do I prefer? I like them all. I like hunting out of a saddle. I like hunting out of preset tree stands. I like hunting out of the ground or hunting off the ground. And, I don't want to make it the norm. I'd prefer it was more of the exception, and it definitely is for me. But hunting out of a box blind, there's nothing wrong with that, especially when it gets brutally cold out. Um, Nothing wrong with hunting out of one of those. So I do not consider I guess if I had to pick a favorite, it would be saddle hunting. And then it would probably go. It's probably a tie between saddle and preset because the only time I hunt saddle is when I'm hunting public land or if I got to make an adjustment on the fly on my property. The only time hunt tree stands is when I'm hunting my personal property, where I have preset stands. I don't hunt the ground at my personal property unless, I always consider myself hunting when I'm, going in for an afternoon hunt, walking in. I walk and still hunt my way in. I do ground hunt on public land. And then box blinds would be my least favorite, I guess, if I'm going to rank them. Next question is it's another one related to cartridges. And I'm definitely not the guy to ask these questions to because I just don't have a lot of experience with a whole lot of cartridges. But I'll answer it in my opinion. Which cartridge gets the least respect? Man, I don't know. It's going to vary so much for so many people. But from my experience, probably 30-30. 30-30s have killed probably more white-tailed deer than probably just about any other round out there. I could be wrong. I could be way off base on that, but it's a solid round, and I don't know if they don't get enough respect, but that's what I'm gonna say. So, 30-30, respect the 30-30, guys. Come on, show it some love. What's the worst weather I've willingly hunted in? I've hunted in some shitty weather, but I've hunted in some winds that I shouldn't have been hunting in. Trees falling down in the woods around me, and I'm just waiting for the tree that I'm strapped to go down. So I would say the worst weather I've willingly hunted in has been extremely windy weather. I can't handle the cold as good as I once could, but I would take, cold over super windy any day of the week. All right, what do we got here? What's one habit? Oh, this is a good one. What's one habit that separates consistently successful hunters from everyone else? Well, in your question, you answered it. It's consistency. If you're gonna go out and hunt and you want to get good at it, you have to be consistent at it. You have to go do it a lot. You have to go screw up a lot. That's how you're going to become a successful hunter. You can't just go out a couple, 3 times a year and expect to get really good at hunting. You just got to go out and do it and do it and do it. It's like anything. You want to become a good pitcher, you got to go pitch. You want to become a good hitter, you got to go hit. You want to become good at drawing. You can't just be like me and draw stick figures when you're on a Teams call, bored at work. Shh, don't tell anybody. But you got to do it. You got to draw if you want to get good at it. If you want to get consistently good at hunting, you got to consistently hunt. You're going to learn from your mistakes. Fishing gear question. What's a gimmick and what actually matters? Man, I don't know. I don't know. We talking ice fishing, talking bass fishing, we talking species specific. I don't know what's a gimmick and what actually matters because probably half of the shit I use when I'm fishing is gimmicks. I don't know. Again, I'm a fair weather fisherman. I don't take it to that level. I just, I fish pretty straightforward. I fish wacky rigs for bass. I run spinners, crankbaits. I don't know what's gimmicks and what's not. So I'm sorry, but I can't answer that question for you. So we're going to move on to the next one. What's a lesson the woods have taught me that had nothing to do with hunting? That's a good one. This is deep. This is a philosophical question right here. I guess the biggest lesson that the woods have taught me, if I'm just looking at it from a big picture, not just to hunting, is the wild is wild. There's nothing, you can't plan for something to happen perfectly in the wild because nothing ever is going to happen exactly the way we, through the process of reasoning, expect it to happen. It's a perfectly designed chaos, and it's unforgiving. I guess that would be the biggest lesson that the woods have taught me. And other than that, I think it would be, you got to have a short-term memory in anything in life, whether it's hunting or anything. If you screw up, you can't sit there and dwell on it. You acknowledge you screwed up. You think about what you did, how you can, not do it again, and you have to move on from it. Have I ever let ego dictate a bad decision in the field? I think I pretty well already answered that one when I was talking about 2009 Illinois archery hunting. So, yeah, if you didn't catch that one, rewind the podcast about, I don't know, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and you'll hear about my ego screwing my hunt. Next question: what is harder, killing your first deer or killing your biggest one? Well, for me, killing my first deer was way harder than killing my biggest one. Um, and again, I'm going to look at this from a bow hunting lens because bow hunting is a completely different animal. So, killing a deer with a bow and arrow, whether you've been bow hunting for 30 years or for 1 year, it's not ever easy. It gets easier. You become more comfortable with doing it, but it's never a slam dunk guarantee easy thing to do. And if you're out there grinding as a young person, I mean, you don't even have to be young. You can be 40 years old and just getting into bow hunting. Um, Getting that first deer under your belt with your bow is something that is very hard to do, and it's a moment you'll never forget. I mean, I shouldn't say probably because I think I really could. I can probably go back and remember every single deer I've ever harvested with a bow or with a gun. I can picture where I was. I can picture what weapon I was using. I can picture that deer when I walked up to it. But none of them are ever going to be as vivid to me as that first deer that I killed with a bow and arrow. Um, I can remember that like it was yesterday. I can almost smell the woods when I think about it. I can picture what that October looked like. I can picture exactly where I was sitting. I can picture how I drew my bow back. I can just remember everything about it. So that first kill with a bow and arrow of a deer is going to be, in my opinion, your hardest one, and it's going to be your most memorable one. Let's see, what do we got left here? We're getting low on questions. We only got about a page and a half left, so I'm going to take a quick drink. How much does scent control actually matter compared to how you access and the wind? Man, I feel like I've beat this one over the head several podcasts, but scent control to me is extremely important. I've said that many times. Some people would disagree. Some people will say it doesn't matter how good your scent control is, the deer's going to smell you. And I agree, you cannot beat a deer's nose. But I'm telling you right now that if I pour gasoline on my hands and go hunting, um, the odds of me getting winded by a deer are much better than if I take a scent free shower. All my stuff is packed away in totes, and I stay as scent free as possible. Uh, the odds of me getting winded by a deer at that situation are going to be much less than if I pour gasoline all over my hands. But your access and the wind are going to be the most important factors because it doesn't matter how good your scent control is if you're constantly blowing your wind into the deer bedding where they're bedding, they're not going to walk right out and walk right to you because they're going to smell you. So yeah, I guess the wind when you get set up, it's important when you're accessing. Don't get me wrong, you don't want it consistently blowing your wind right into an access as you're walking into hunt. But once you're actually set up and hunting, that's when the wind to me matters the most because if it's a consistent wind blowing in the wrong direction, it's just more and more scent particles that are getting dispersed throughout that area, um, and significantly increasing your odds of being winded. What's the most memorable animal I didn't kill? Let me think about that. Probably the 2009 buck that I talked about earlier, guys. Um, you know, I go back and relive that every once in a while, thinking to myself, what the hell were you thinking? that would be my, had I have successfully killed that deer, I think I'm pretty sure that would have been my number two biggest buck of all time. So yeah, I definitely think about that one. Um, it was quite memorable. Um, I think the most memorable animal that I didn't kill, though, will be the very first deer I shot at with my bow and arrow. And I talked about that back on episode 1. So if you haven't heard that story and you want to kind of know a little bit more about my history and how I got to where I am today in my hunting life, maybe you're new to the podcast, I suggest you go back and listen to episode 1. You'll kind of get a better feel for who I am and some of the things that I've done that have kind of shaped me from starting in 1995 to today. So that first deer I missed with a bow and arrow is quite memorable. And it's quite a funny story. Not going to rehash it here, but if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to episode 1. I think you'll get a kick out of it. Next question. This is a good one. Man, there's some good questions in here. If someone's burned out on hunting, what would you tell them? If you're getting burned out on hunting, you're not doing it for the love of hunting. Um, Now, I'm not gonna say like getting burnt out. Like, yeah, it can you can get burnt out when you're hunting consecutive days, dark to dark. That's a different kind of burnout. But this question to me feels like somebody's just like, man, I like to hunt, but man, I'm just burned out. I'm just burned out. I'm not into it. You need to really take a deep look at yourself and think about why it is you liked hunting in the beginning. What was it that drew you to hunting? And then really reflect on that. And is that what you're still doing? And is that why you're still doing it? Because if you've gone from doing it just from the pure love of being out there, and now you're doing it to try to compare yourself to somebody else or compare yourself to social media, you're going to burn yourself out because your experiences, your opportunities are not the same as anybody else's are. What's a mistake first year archers almost always make? Uh, I'm going to go with two of them. One is trying to draw too much weight, whether they're shooting a recurve, longbow, or a compound. And two is uh, having a poor grip on the bow, putting the death grip on it, if you will. Those are probably the two most common mistakes I see first year archers make. Next question is, do you think most people overthink their setups? No, I don't. I think by and large, the the hunting public in general, for the most part, I feel like I can say this quite confidently, don't put a ton of thought into their setups. A lot of people hunt the same stand over and over and over again. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, for the purpose of this question, no, I don't think the majority of hunters overthink their setups. I think most hunters don't put enough thought into their setups. So, quite the opposite of overthinking them. Next question. What is your go to wild game meal? Whew, that's a good one. Oh man, I really, really like, and I haven't had this in years, and now it's got me thinking about it. And I don't have the recipe. In fact, my mom has the recipe. Years and years ago, I bought my mom. I mean, I was a kid. I didn't buy it. My dad bought it, and I wrapped it and said, "Here's a gift from me for Christmas, Mom." But it was a really, really good wild game cookbook, and there was a recipe in there. Um, you could do it with really any steak cut of venison. We would do it with round steaks, if I remember correctly. But it was you would like pan sear them, and then you would bake them with, your different seasonings and your garlic and all that stuff. And then you would, I think it was Granny Smith apples, you would slice and lay over top of the meat, and you would bake it, and those apples would almost like melt into a glaze. That was really, really good, and it's got me thinking about it. And I'm gonna have to ask my mom next time I talk to her if she can send me that recipe, because it's got me thinking about it and it's got me hungry for it. I haven't had it in a long time. So that's one of my favorites. And then I really like squirrel in a crock pot. You cook it low and slow, get all the bones out of there, strain it out, and then basically make like pulled pork, but with squirrel. Really, really good. That's another one of my favorites. And then for like just a quick go-to wild game meal, I love venison chili. Again, just throw it in the crock pot in the morning, throw it on low, let it cook for 10, 12 hours, and you got a really, really good chili there. But again, that can be done with, you know, any kind of meat, but I really like it with venison. Next question is, if I could only hunt one state for the rest of my life, which state would it be and why? Man, Michigan, to be honest with you. If I could only pick one state to hunt and I had to hunt that state for the rest of my life, I would probably pick my home state of Michigan. And people are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? The easy answer is like Iowa, right? But I love hunting Michigan. And I'm not just looking at this for whitetail. If this question said if I can only pick one whitetail state, I would pick Iowa hands down. But it just says hunting. I can hunt for so many different animals in the state of Michigan. I can hunt elk, I can hunt bear, I can hunt whitetail. Might be able to hunt wolves the next few years. We'll see. Um, I can hunt small game, waterfowl. I mean, there's just so much. There's an abundance of game to hunt here in the state of Michigan. And there's a lot of different types of terrain I can hunt it in, whether it's mountainous up, mountainous range up in the western UP, you know, thick cedar swamp, ag field, river bottoms. There's just a lot here that the state of Michigan has to offer. This state could be so much better than it is, which I'm going to quick jump off of this. If you do live in the state of Michigan, guys, I really do encourage you to go to the NRC website. I believe it's nrc.gov and look at the schedule for the NRC meetings that are coming up. The NRC is working right now to set the next 3 years worth of regulations, and they need to hear from the hunters. And I hear so many people say they're not going to listen to us. It doesn't make a difference what we say. We need to show up. If we show up in numbers they've never seen before, if they can't even hold the meetings in the rooms that they're trying to hold them in because so many hunters show up, I promise you, at least we'll be heard. And it's a start in the right direction. I think for way too long, myself included, we've all just sat around and, you know, bitched and moaned to one another that things aren't going to change no matter what I say. We got to start speaking up, guys. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. Michigan's just got a plethora of opportunity for a multitude of different animals, so I would probably pick Michigan for hunting in general. Let's see here. Lost my spot on my page again. What's one thing I refuse to compromise on with my hunting gear? I'm going to take it back to bow hunting, and it's going to be two-part. It's going to be quality broadhead and a quality arrow. I don't have to shoot the greatest bow, like I said, but I want really high-quality arrows, and I want really high-quality broadheads. What's more important, confidence in your weapon or the specifications listed for the weapon? Come on, man. This is why I don't put names with them, because I'd be tempted to call somebody out. I don't give a crap what the specs are. It's about my confidence. If I don't have confidence in what I'm shooting, there's no sense in me shooting it. So it's 100% confidence in my weapon. Next question. What's the sketchiest ice situation I've ever been in? Saginaw Bay. I don't know. Somewhere between 2014 and 2017, I think. I can't remember exactly. I could be off on the dates, but in that range. For those that have never been out to Saginaw Bay, the bay's really shallow for like the first, I don't know, mile and a half. And again, I'm not like a bay expert, so please don't like ask me for tech tips on how to fish Saginaw Bay. I go out to virtually the same spot every time I go out, and I jig with the same damn jig. And if I'm not catching them, I just keep jigging it. But back to the question. but there's pressure cracks out on Saginaw Bay. And if the whole bay is not iced over, if the entire bay itself doesn't get iced over, that ice kind of floats and it can move from shoreline to shoreline essentially. And depending on how windy it is, that can cause the ice to buckle and you get pressure cracks and you get, big ridges of ice out there. Um, so we were out there with our snowmobiles, and on the way out, the pressure crack was like, I don't know, maybe 2 foot of open water. And when I say open water, like it's really slushy, icy water, but it's not ice. I mean, if you were to walk up and try to walk across that crack, you would fall through. It's just not solid. Um, but on a snowmobile, you cross that thing at 25, 30 miles an hour, and your skis glide right over that little gap. No big deal. Um, so we went out. We had a freaking fantastic time. I mean, we were smashing the walleye that day. I think all of us got our limit. And we were watching the weather. There was some snow coming in, but the night bite, it was a little slow during the day. And when I say we crushed it, like as night approached, the night bite was phenomenal. And we just started slamming them. And it was like you couldn't get your jig back down quick enough. You'd hook into one, get it up, take it off. By the time you got it back down again, I mean, they were just on fire. Um, so I think there was a group of, I think there was 4 or 5 of us out there. I can't remember for sure. I know for sure we had 2 sleds, 4 people. We might have had a third sled. So yeah, 5 or 6 of us out there. Um, we kind of quit tracking the snow because the night bite was getting so good. And it had been windy that day. It had been a pretty strong wind out of the west. And as we're wrapping up, we got our limits. It's past dark now. So we go to start packing up. And when we open up our shanties and are looking out the windows or looking across the bay, I mean, you can't see 20 feet in front of you. It's just snowing super, super hard. So struggling to get our stuff packed up. You're getting cold because if you're like me, I can't do anything with a pair of gloves on. I'm just like, I look like Ricky Bobby. Like, what do I do with my hands? Um, so I'm out there and my hands are getting cold because I'm breaking everything down with my bare hands. I get my snowmobile started up, I get everything packed up, and we're trying to follow the GPS, trying to follow our exact route back, and we're struggling. GPS, it's getting really, really cold. The GPS keeps like freezing up and it's not showing us where we're at in real time. It's like staggered and delayed. So it's taken us forever to get off the ice. One of my buddies that's with me, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to put him on blast, but he starts like freaking panicking, like straight up having a panic attack to the point where he's like screaming, just stop. Let's just put our shanties up and spend the night out here. And we're like, I ain't spending the night out here, bud. I mean, if you want to, you can, but we're not. So we kept trucking along, and I pick on him for saying that, but he might have been onto something because we ended up so far off course. We got to the pressure crack, and there was no place to cross. The crack had opened up to like, I don't know, it was like 5 or 6 feet wide, and we kept just kind of following the crack in the snow, in the dark, until we could find a spot. And we finally found a spot where it was like, I don't know, it was like 3, maybe 4 feet wide, where the crack had been. And it was the closest we'd found. So we just kind of were like, we're going for it. Don't do this if you ever go out to the bay. And again, if you've never been out there, don't ever go out to the bay by yourself, and don't ever go out there without, having a group of people knowing where they're going. It's very important, especially for guys like me who don't get out there very often. I'll never go out there by myself. I just don't get out there enough to feel safe doing it. But we decided, screw it, this is the best we're going to get. So we spun around. We got like a 50, 60-foot head start, and we just smashed the throttle on the snowmobiles and shot across that gap, and we made it. But my shanty hit the ice as I came across and popped up in the air and spun sideways and flung all my shit out. And yeah, it was a mess. And by the time we finally got back to the truck. It took us forever to get back off. I think we were 8, 9 miles out that day. And I was about borderline hypothermic. So that was pretty sketchy. The bay is a dangerous place, and people need to respect it. And we did not respect it that night because we got too caught up in the bite to get out of there when we should. All right, just a few more questions, guys. I don't know how long I've been going, but about halfway through my cigar. I know my dinner's about ready for me because my lovely wife is cooking me some delicious dinner tonight. Um, Here we go. What's your personal definition of a successful season now versus when I was younger? Man, to me, a successful season is that I put myself in the right situations to have opportunities. Whether I capitalize on that opportunity or not, to me, is just icing on the cake. In my younger years, when I was real young into hunting, a successful season to me was just seeing deer. And then once I got proficient at seeing and killing deer, a successful season to me for several years and there as I was, in my teens and early 20s was how many deer I could kill. How many deer could I put in the freezer is what to me was a successful season. And now it's just all about the experience and taking the knowledge that I've learned over 30 years of doing this. And if I was able to put myself in positions to capitalize, um, you know, whether or not the shot came to fruition is secondary. It's did I put myself in the right spots? That's what I consider to be a successful season now. All right. Um, what's a rule or regulation most hunters don't understand? And I don't know. I mean, if you go back to episode 12 pertaining to Michigan, the episode was titled Mitten Madness. I talk a lot about some of the regs in there, and it's not that I don't think there's a lot of them out there that hunters don't understand. The season dates can be confusing, and what weapons are legal can be confusing, just because we have so many damn seasons in Michigan. But I'm going to change your question. I'm going to take a little creative authority over this, um, and I'm going to say, what's a rule or regulation that most hunters don't agree with? And I would say most most hunters in the state of Michigan, myself included, don't agree with the baiting ban in the lower peninsula. And that's coming from a lot of guys like myself that don't hunt over bait. But there's just there's no there's no sound reasoning behind that baiting ban. Um, so yeah, I don't think there's many that we don't understand, but there's a lot we don't agree with, and I think one of the more common ones is the baiting ban. What's the best thing I've ever spent money on hunting? Hmm. That's a tough one for me to answer because I've bought a lot of dumb shit over the years. The best money I've ever spent on hunting. It's gonna be my trips that I take. Um, I love going on these trips. I'm so excited for this Ohio muzzleloader season. I think, like I said, I think this is my eighth or ninth year. I haven't even killed a deer down there with my muzzleloader yet. I just love going. The camaraderie, the adventure of going into new places. I get to go into some places that I access by water. So for me, the best money I spend on hunting is when I take these DIY out of state hunting trips. What's one thing I wish more hunters talked about honestly? Um, Ethical shots. I think we should be more honest as hunters. Um, there's a lot of unethical shots taken with guns, with bow and arrow, with crossbow. We should be more honest that we all know that that happens, and we should all take a little more accountability for it. I've taken bad shots. I mean, I've taken shots that were good shots that ended up bad, but in my younger years, I took some shots that, in my opinion, looking back on them, were not ethical shots. Um, and it wasn't out of a place of malice. It was just out of a place of inexperience, excitement. Um, I took some frontal shots at deer that I shouldn't have taken. I took way too hard quartering away shots at deer. And, it's things that I would not do now, I learned from. But yeah, ultimately, that's just something I think all hunters we could be more honest about. Let's see here. There's a couple more questions here. This is a good one. Um, you know what? There's a handful more here, but I'm just gonna close out on this one because I think this is a cool question. Um, what do I want Wild Spirits Outdoors to represent 5 years from now? I want it to represent real hunting culture. Um, there's a lot of good podcasts out there. I listen to a lot of good podcasts. Um, a lot of really down to earth guys, a lot of really technical savvy guys, a lot of guys that are talking big bucks all the time, and I like a lot of it. I don't listen to podcasts I don't like, so there's several that I like. I want something a little bit different for Wild Spirits Outdoors. I want people to not worry so much about you know shooting the biggest deer. If you want to shoot the biggest deer, you got to be where the biggest deer live. I don't live there, but I still go out and I hunt like crazy because I love to hunt. Um, I want Wild Spirits to represent real hunting culture, um, stewardship of the land and of the game that we hunt. And I that would be the legacy I would want for Wild Spirits Outdoors. So 5 years from now, I hope that still resonates with people. And on that, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. That's a great question. Um, I hope to still be doing this in 5 years. Who knows with technology what podcasting will look like in 5 years. Um, I want to. This is just this perfect. This wow. Spit it out, Brad. This is a perfect question to end on because I was actually looking at some stuff. I got my Spotify year end wrap up that they send to creators, and it kind of gives you some statistics. And I was very happy to see how Wild Spirits Outdoors is doing thus far, and that's because of you guys that are listening and engaging with it. Um, you know, Wild Spirits Outdoors is in the top 80%. So um, very there's varying degrees of this, but for new podcasts, um, Wild Spirits Outdoors was more popular in 2025 and only really basically a third of 2025 than 80% of podcasts that were created in the year 2025. Um, so that's a huge kind of pat on the back. It makes me feel good that I'm doing something that people engage with. But it's a great pat on the back to the listeners. It means that at least some of what I'm talking about is resonating with you guys. So I appreciate that. But again, why I really want to close out on this, and it just feels like the perfect thing. I was doing some research. Um, there's, and I might be a little off on my numbers, but I think I'll be pretty accurate with this, guys. There are 4.5 million podcasts globally as of 2025. There's 4.5 million of them that are available through, various platforms like Spotify. Of those 4.5 million, 60% of those, so we're already under 2 million, 60% of them never make it to episode 5. Less than 750,000 of them make it past episode 10. So we went from 4.5 million now to under 750,000. So 75% of it's already gone. They don't even make it to episode 10. This has been a learning process for me. I go back and I listen to my audio from some of my early podcasts, and I'm not pretending like my audio now is perfect because it isn't, but it's gotten a lot better. It's been a learning process, and I appreciate the patience from you guys for putting up with poor audio, putting up with me saying I'm going to release a podcast on Tuesday and I don't get it out till Wednesday or Thursday because I'm, pulling out the hair that I don't have trying to edit it. It's been a learning process, but it's something I have truly enjoyed doing and I want to continue to do. And I really think this is just going to get better and better. So we are 17 episodes in. It's an amazing feat in and of itself, in my opinion, for just a guy who loves to talk about hunting in my 12 by 12 studio that my wife, myself, my buddy Steve put together while I was all gimped up with a bum arm. Um, Episode 18 is going to be next week. Yeah. episode 18, I think will be the last episode of 2025. So maybe I should have saved the cigar for that one. Maybe we'll have a celebration cigar for the first podcast of 2026. And that first podcast that I record for 2026 will be my first remote podcast. So I'm excited for that. I really thank you guys for joining. Thank you for being a part of the tribe. Please continue to like, follow, and share wherever you listen, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, Apple, iHeart, etc. You guys don't understand how much it means and how much it helps when you share and like. And please go over to Facebook and Instagram and follow along Wild Spirits Outdoors. The Facebook page has been growing like crazy lately. Getting a lot of really good interaction, a lot of great questions coming out of Facebook. Thanks a lot for being along on the journey, guys. I appreciate you. There's still a few more days here in the Michigan archery season. So if you are out there bow hunting, wear your harnesses, straight arrows. Wish me luck when I go to Ohio, but I guess we can talk about that a little more on the next episode. Until then, this is Wild Spirits Outdoors. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Wild Spirits Outdoors. We appreciate you joining us on this journey. Don't forget to like, follow, and share wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us grow the tribe and keep on chasing the wild. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Spirits Outdoors, and also on YouTube at Wild Spirits Pod. You can also head over to www.wildspiritsoutdoors.com for more content. Until next time, chase the wild, feel the spirit.